What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a video about all of the announcement highlights from last night's The Game Awards. Bringing with it, as always, a host of announcements, world premieres, that kind of thing, and if you're the kind of person who wants to see just those, you may not want to watch a 3-hour plus show. However, this year's show was pretty decent, all things considered, and there is certainly some interesting stuff to go over here, as I, of course, prep my own content and plans for next year in terms of video games. However, to get this started, just to address the elephant in the room, Divinity was announced at the Game Awards. If you follow this channel at all, you may well be aware that Divinity is one of my favorite franchises ever. I absolutely love it. Yes, I will be covering it individually in its own video. You're going to see that about an hour from the time this one drops, so if you're watching this past like 7 a.m. Central, that video should already be out and you can watch all my thoughts on that there. Probably not going to be released anytime soon, but absolutely pumped for that. My single most anticipated game now. Now, before we jump into it, just a word on the actual awards themselves. For the most part, more or less what I expected. Expedition 33 won most everything. While it wouldn't have been my personal choice for a lot of them, it is in fact a great game, so I get it. I did see that Doom won, which I was really happy to see. If you've played Doom the Dark Ages, they did a tremendous amount of work, to make that game approachable for everyone, and I'm glad to see that that was rewarded appropriately. That's about all of the thoughts I have on the actual awards themselves, though. Moving on to the announcement highlights. First up, and we're going in mostly chronological order from the time of when the show started to when it finished, by the way, so no particular order otherwise. But kicking it off with Decrepit, coming out in 2026. This game seems to be a blending of first-person Souls-like combat with a roguelike element. Your job is to escape like a dungeon scenario, and then if you die, you get sent back, and you're fighting your way back and through all of it. This is the kind of game I think could really go either way. This might be fun, it might be terrible, which is usually my experience with most roguelikes, honestly. I'm going to keep an eye on it, but not too much to say otherwise at the moment. Next up, we've got a look at Pragmata. In fact, you can actually play it via a demo for yourself right now. It's available over on Steam. But Pragmata is due out April 23rd, 2026, and this is kind of an odd one, honestly. It's kind of like a sci-fi action sort of game that's doing some interesting things with combat, and you like trying to hack robots with this young girl like on your back at the same time that you're trying to protect. It's a whole thing. It looks interesting enough. I'm not too sold on it personally just yet, but we'll see how it goes. Not too much longer to wait on that one either way. I might cover the demo here in the coming weeks just to check it out for myself. Following on from that, we got one of the larger reveals for the show, which is the reveal of Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic. This was just an announcement that that game is coming. Most notably, a Star Wars game set in the Old Republic era is of note to a lot of people. People have been clamoring for something like KOTOR 3 for a long time, and while this isn't literally KOTOR 3, it seems to be at least trying to perhaps replicate that a little bit. So something to know for sure, at least. We'll have to wait and see more of it before I get too excited, but glad to see it announced, if nothing else. Moving on though, then we had the Solasta 2 early access trailer. Always glad to see more of Solasta 2. I've been waiting on that CRPG quite some time already. It's entering early access on March 16th. You can certainly expect me to cover more of it there. I loved Solasta 1, and I'm excited to see more of what Tactical Adventures has in store for everybody with this early access period. Then we had an announcement from Wizards of the Coast and D&D, actually. They gave a cinematic reveal for an upcoming game they are working on called Warlock. They plan on showing gameplay for it in the summer, followed by a 2027 release. Judging by the name and the aesthetic of the trailer and stuff they showed, it looks like this is meant to follow a Warlock from D&D around, if you'd believe it, which is great news for me. I love the Warlock class personally, but I'd have to see what the actual game is first before I can get too excited. Hopefully it turns out great, though. Following on from that, we then had a look at Ontos, I believe it is called. This is like a sci-fi narrative adventure, but the catch is it is made by the same people who made Soma. Soma was a really well-loved game, and honestly, just that is enough to get me interested in it personally. It is supposed to be coming sometime in 2026, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. Don't know if I will necessarily review this one. Always kind of hard to tell with these kinds of games. However, it does look pretty cool. So, following on from that, we had a look at Resident Evil Requiem, which the big reveal here was that Leon Kennedy is going to be in it. But it is due out for February 26th, 2026. Not much longer to wait on that one at all. I will say that compared to a lot of other Resident Evils, I really like the vibe of what they've been showing for this one. Resident Evil's not a big franchise for me personally. I, yes, know, of course, how it is beloved by a lot of people, but for whatever reason, this one specifically is speaking to me a little more than the ones in the past have. Either way, though, you'll be hearing about that one again soon, just due to its release date either way. Following on from there, we had another extended gameplay look at the upcoming Exodus title, a game that's kinda sorta like Mass Effect. Truth be told, I haven't been keeping up with the news on this one a ton. I've just been kind of vaguely aware of the stuff that it has had going on and people mentioning it here and there. Outside of what they had to show here, it is apparently coming in 2027, which is probably no surprise. I don't think anybody was expecting that one necessarily super soon, but either way, looking pretty cool. Next up, we had a really cool reveal for me personally, which is Control Resonant, which is effectively Control 2. Control 1 was like one of my early game reviews, and I really liked it. I enjoyed that series specifically a lot. And it looks like this time we are taking up the role of Jesse Faden's brother, I believe. Excited to see what Remedy winds up doing with that one. I still need to get around to playing Alan Wake 1 and 2, though, so there is that. A curious entry next, we then have a Gang of Dragon. So this was a game that is still a ways off from what I understand, but Gang of Dragon is from one of the people who used to work on the Yakuza series, who then started their own studio, I believe. And perhaps then, unsurprisingly, Gang of Dragon does look like a slightly more serious, at least in tone, version of something like the Yakuza series, and with any luck it manages to live up to that and find some space to be interesting all on its own. I'm up for it at the very least. Now, third from the end here, we then had, honestly, kind of a bit of a bummer for Diablo 4 for me. They announced their new expansion, the Lord of Hatred. Looks like you're going to be fighting Mephisto, and they're bringing in the Paladin class. And unfortunately, thanks to what they've done with the Diablo franchise as a whole these days, I just don't find myself super excited about it. I may well take a look at it when I have time, as we don't have a super long time to wait for it, as it is coming in April 28th to be specific, I believe. If my schedule allows for it, I may well take a look at it, but I mean, Diablo 4 just as a game and the direction they've gone with it since launch just has not been for me, and I don't really expect that to change with this. Following on from that, there was a trailer for Lords of the Fallen 2. Lords of the Fallen was a really fun Souls-like when I took a look at it back towards when it released. It then went through a bunch of overhauls and stuff. And in fact, kind of annoyingly for me personally, it looks like they added some achievements for the original game to go alongside of this. Looks like they're mostly just bringing in a veteran mode from what I understand. Either way, though, I did enjoy Lords of the Fallen, so I will almost certainly check out Lords of the Fallen 2. Our penultimate entry is ultimately No Law. No Law is an upcoming, like, cyberpunk-esque type of game. First-person, action-oriented. What actually caught my eye about this specifically was less the game itself and more that it was from the makers of The Ascent. Now that's interesting because The Ascent was like a top-down cyberpunk game that was really, really cool. It had a few things kind of keeping it from being incredible in my opinion, but it was still a really fun game, and I'm actually kind of excited to see what that studio can do from here. Definitely going on the wish list for me. And then to finally close it out, we then have Phantom Blade Zero. Now, I don't know if they had announced this previously, but last I heard, Phantom Blade Zero was meant to be a PlayStation exclusive, and it looks like they changed their mind on that and that it is now coming to Steam. That is important because I am a PC channel, and when I thought it was just going to be a PlayStation exclusive, I really wasn't that interested. But now that I know it's actually coming to PC, I am up for it. I will be reviewing that when it releases, which we also got 9/9/26. As for the game itself, looking very sharp, which is why I was interested in it to begin with. In particular, some of the boss fights they showed off and some of like the animations and moves you could do looked really cool to me personally. I'm actually pretty excited to play that now that I know it's coming to Steam. And I hope it manages to live up to my expectations. But that is pretty much going to do it for important announcements as far as this channel is concerned. There was, of course, other stuff. Most of it was smaller or just of no particular interest to me personally, and thus isn't something I would cover on the channel, which again matters to me personally. But if there was anything I didn't include here, of course, drop it down in the comments. Let people know what you're excited about as we start to look forward to gaming in 2026. But in the meantime, hope you're ready to close out the year with me, which is as good a time as any to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.